Welcome to Second City Liberty, a Chicago-centric podcast that takes a look at politics, current events, sports, pop culture through the lens of liberty. I'm your host, Jim Hume. Thanks for tuning in. On January 10th, 2023, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Protect Illinois Communities Act. The law makes Illinois the ninth state, plus the District of Columbia, to enact some sort of ban or restrictions on semi-automatic assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Support for the bill gained traction by progressive politicians after the July 4th, 2022 shooting at the Highland Park Independence Day Parade. That incident took the lives of 7 people. Opponents argue the bill is unlawful based on how the legislation was passed and unconstitutional. To discuss how the new law impacts Illinois gun owners, gun shops, firearm dealers, and to give us an update on the most recent litigation being taken against the legislation is Todd Vandermyde. Todd is a former NRA contract lobbyist, Illinois gun law guru, and host of Freedom Steel YouTube channel. Hello, Todd. Thanks for joining the podcast today.
Nice to be with you, Jim.
Todd also has one of the best beards on YouTube. I think maybe we're competing for that honor, but
I trimmed mine up because they said I was looking more like the Taliban than a gun guy.
If you could please start off maybe just telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what's motivated you to get involved with Second Amendment activism.
I joined the military in 1983. I've always enjoyed guns, and I was always in combat arms. And with that, I ended up becoming an operating engineer. And so I ran bulldozers, heavy equipment, stuff like that. And through buying a motorcycle, I became an accidental lobbyist, got involved with a group called the Bait of Illinois, to where I ended up heading up the state legislative program. And about that time, NRA was looking for a contract guy in Illinois. I was down at the Capitol anyways. They picked me up. And I worked for them for 25 years, I believe it was. And through the time, I don't have a college degree. I have a high school diploma. And because of that, I was going to be arguing criminal law and things like that in front of the Judicial Committee, which is comprised of mostly lawyers. And I just figured out that I had to be better at it than they were. I had to know it better. Being a gun guy, we're all technical in nature in dealing with whether it's a 4473 or the technicalities of 9mm Kurtz versus 9mm Luger and all that kind of stuff. So I kept the appellate court briefs in my bathroom. That was my reading material, and I would study that up, and I would spend a lot of time in the law library at the Capitol researching statutes to understand how things are coming about, because you'd often go to committee and see a bill introduced because there was some change in a court decision that the court found X or Y. And so I seem to have a knack for being able to take the complex of federal and state gun laws and boil it down into a very digestible form and articulate that. And that's what has kind of gotten me my notoriety with all this. And it almost feels like I'm a walking encyclopedia at times about everything that, how all these other things go on. And they don't, the other side doesn't do that. They don't live this stuff like we do. And so that's kind of like where I got my niche. And I retired from lobbying a couple of years ago. And I've been building ranges out at my gun club with the heavy equipment they bought us to, and that's where the name Freedom Steel came, is that
Sure.
We're using heavy iron to build, new gun ranges for us to enjoy those freedoms and liberties.
As much as we can for now, that's for sure.
Oh, we will. We will.
Good. Well, I know this particular bill was originally written or proposed, I think it was back in January. And there was like one co-sponsor and very little support for it. It really wasn't going anywhere. And then, after the tragic events in Highland Park, that's really seemed to be a catalyst that got a lot of politicians on board, especially the, pretty much almost all the Chicago area progressive Democrats for sure, and I believe there's even a couple Republicans that had backed it. Um, so it really gained steam after that, and the thing that I found interesting is, especially in December, they were uh, the the legislature was winding down. It was a kind of a lame duck session, and they were really trying to get this through. They were trying to attach it to a lot of other bills, like into the amusement park safety bill and this, that, the other
Hmm.
thing. And they were kind of just doing whatever they could to try to get this in front of the legislatures. And then, of course, it was signed into law in the middle of the night, the Tuesday night before inauguration, which was kind of able to give Pritzker that feather in his cap. But maybe real quick, if you could just kind of describe what is in that legislation and kind of the the uh, the Cliff Notes kind of version. I know it's quite an extensive bill, but
Well,
just go
no,
over it
we
real
we can
quick.
boil it down into there are five basic components to the bill. First, there's a change in the red flag laws. They're bumping those from 6 months up to a year. Second is they're making more illegal switches and machine gun parts. Uh, Illinois already has two statutes about machine gun parts or the parts to convert a gun into a machine gun and the use of that firearm. So with that, that stuff already exists. They just made it more illegal with their language. But the funny part is, in their language, they also prohibited tools. We're waiting to see how that flies. With that, so then you get into the gun stuff. And I'll break it out that you have a gun, one of the broadest gun bans we've seen. You have a magazine ban. One of the, it's 10 rounds for, and there's a contradiction here. There's 5 rounds for shotguns in the gun ban, 10 rounds for long guns in the magazine ban. Um, Words mean things. You and I, when we deal with this kind of stuff. And so you've got the mag ban. And then the last component is you got what I'll call the usage part, where if you are a non-resident, you're only allowed to be here for 24 hours with one of these prohibited guns. As a person with a concealed carry license, you cannot take certain guns on the public way. So my Glock here, my carry gun, has a threaded barrel. I will not be able to use this as my carry gun in its current configuration um, under this bill or this law. Because this is considered an assault pistol, it's illegal to carry on the public way, which means that I can't even have it in my vehicle unless I'm going to or from a range, or I'm going to or from certain private property. There's now a to or from clause. We have had one of the most liberal transport laws in the nation, and now we've got this to or from stuff that is jammed in there. So those are the basic components. Guns that are currently owned or grandfathered in, if you want to keep them, you're going to have to register them. Magazines are grandfathered in. Uh, Anything over 10 rounds for long guns, anything over 15 rounds for a pistol. And with that, um, those are the basic components of it.
Yeah, and the registration in order to keep what your the firearms you currently have that appear on this banned list. Um, for me, I find that very, very problematic indeed. Registration is the first step to confiscation, as far as I'm concerned. So before they can come and take the guns, they have to know where they are, and
Right.
this
So
would certainly open the door for that.
let's walk through that in a couple of ways. Number one, 1982, Jane Byrne used Chicago gun registry to enact a handgun ban. They sat there and closed off registration, no new registrations. Therefore, you couldn't legally have a new handgun post 1982 in the city of Chicago. So we've had experience with this. And then the question for us is now, if you're a person and want to remain on the right side of the law and you sit there and register your firearm. So let's say you live in Cook County. Cook County's local semi-auto ban is a ban on possession and ownership. You can't have it in your home. So if that exists, are towns like Cook County, Highland Park, Evanston now going to be allowed to get that those lists, because the language is vague in the act where it says that for police lawful police purposes. I want compliance checks. I want to know how many of these guns are allegedly in my town because Nancy Rotering is running around there, with her undies in a knot, and you can't have this in your house. Are they going to use it for compliance? We've been told they're not going to go house to house.
Right.
Yeah, we've heard all that kind of BS before.
If you were
So
if you're a resident of Cook County like I am, and say for example, you may actually be in possession of some of these firearms that are now banned by the state, that are currently banned by Cook County, registering them to me would also be an act of self-incrimination, right?
correct.
It violates the Fifth Amendment in that sense, where if I'm already if someone is already in possession of uh, these firearms in a municipality or locality that already has a ban in place, now you have to kind of admit that you do have them to the state police, and that would certainly be uh, a violation of the Fifth Amendment, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a violation of the Privacy Clause of the Illinois Constitution. And so, we're going to be fighting all that in due time. This is a 100-page bill. So, just like you eat an elephant one bite at a time, we're going to tackle this one piece at a time.
Yeah, and then the kind of the other thing that popped up just a few days later was a number of county sheriffs throughout Illinois. Um, Here's kind of the latest map I found, have either come out and stated that uh, they would not enforce this bill, uh, or release the language that they were at least felt that the bill uh, did not align with what they believe the Constitution said. Of course, Lake County, Cook County, and Champaign County have you know agreed to go along with the bill, but uh, that's uh, that's pretty significant. A vast majority of the county sheriffs here in Illinois have already come out and said they would not be using their uh, departments to enforce this law.
Right. And if you go back to my testimony in front of the committee, I clearly told them, how are you going to enforce this? I've been egging them on, waiting to see what their answer on enforcement is. Um, that I don't think they've thought it all the way through. I mean, they thought that they wanted a quick signature on this because they did not want a run on gun shops. They didn't want thousands of more of these types of guns going back, getting out in the circulation when they're trying to, they're like the little Dutch boy trying to put the finger in the dike. And so with that, they were trying. They've admitted that. I was on a NPR broadcast yesterday, and they admitted it. They had that as an intended consequence. So there was no, oh, it's the next session. They're out till next week. It's 3 days, and all the normal procedural stuff, to where people might have been buying stuff up until March, and we'd have had a run on stuff here in Illinois. They anticipated that. They wanted to shut it off. So it is what it is. Um, but
Yeah, that was definitely by design, kind of, and kind of shuffling around the legislation, trying to attach it to one bill, going from the House to the Senate. It was kind of interesting. I signed all the witness slips that came up, and it was
right,
like every day they changed exactly where this bill was going to be written into. So you had to sign a new witness slip, and there were thousands of witness slips against, and just a handful in favor. And again, by design, they're shuffling that around. So, oh well, scrap that. We have to start, you have to start over. Just a shell game of how they were trying to kind of hide this legislation in order to get it passed with as little kind of public discourse or public awareness as possible.
Yeah, they certainly didn't want to spend a lot of time going over the meat and potatoes. And where we've been doing remote testimony for 2 years under COVID, they have suddenly dropped the hammer and now it's back to in person only. And I'm retired from being a lobbyist. I'm really not in the mood to go drive down to Springfield 3 hours one way to have them sit there and say you've got 3 minutes. And
Yeah.
part of
Mhm.
what happened this year was that a bunch of the groups got together, and I impressed upon them the time for negotiations are over. Every time our side or someone from our side has gone to the table and tried to act in good faith. And I did this back in the day. I would sit there and say, this bill is garbage. If you change it over here, you get me out of your hair, and do things like that. And there are ways to make bad bills passable to where they didn't infringe upon our rights, but they actually tried to accomplish something. But recently, with some of those interactions that other groups have had, they have turned around and used it for more gun control. And they've gone back on what was originally discussed, talked about, and have turned it into a new gun control scheme. So, with that, I impressed upon everybody that the time for negotiations are over. Talk to the hand.
Mhm.
That's it. We will see you in court. And that's where Don Harmon got a little swarmy at the end of his speech. And challenge accepted, counselor. I have no problem. I have seen and read every brief in a gun case filed by our attorney general's office. Color me unimpressed. I would take a first year paralegal and put them up against what the state has written.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how everything unfolds. Yeah, obviously there's litigation going on against the bill. I know Tom DeVore has taken the state to court, I believe, at the state level. And really, I know the first case anyway was kind of arguing more on a procedural level. Uh, and I know that there's more cases in federal court. So maybe to kind of go over like some of the different lawsuits that are out there. I think as of today, there's been a lot of news on some of these, and a lot of different groups have gotten involved in filing lawsuits against the state.
Do you have a bingo card? By the time I get done with this, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. So let's start off with the gun ban. The gun ban, there's a guy, Tom DeVore, that you mentioned, who is challenging this on procedural grounds within the Constitution. And he's filed the first lawsuit with almost 900 litigants. The second lawsuit was filed with almost 1,700 litigants. There's a suit that's allegedly filing today or early tomorrow in Macon County that has several hundred more. And then there was a state lawsuit filed by a attorney by the name of Tom Mag in Southern Illinois. And so that suit has kind of kicked off a flurry of activity today. So a few days ago, the state filed a motion to have the Mag lawsuit kicked up to federal court because it implicates the Second Amendment. You had, from the time he filed, the Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and State Rifle Association file a federal lawsuit attacking the prohibition on sale, acquisition of guns and magazines. Then the groups I'm involved with, the umbrella group is called the Illinois Gun Rights Alliance. It includes FFL Illinois, Aurora Sportsman's Club, Gun Owners of America, the Gun Saves Life group.
Mhm.
We're talking to the State Line Rifle Association and I4 as well as becoming participants, along with a number of individuals, gun shops, and industry people who are all supportive of our efforts. You also had the National Rifle Association jump in with the National Shooting Sports Foundation and file a lawsuit. So the judge, the other day, the motion was made to move the mag suit. Hold on.
No worries.
Cole! Knock it off! Ruger! Hey! I hit my mute button in my back.
You're back.
Okay, sorry about that. The dog saw somebody. And I could yell at him without being on mic. So with this, the mag lawsuit, the judge recused himself in that case. It was a Judge Gilbert, who we also drew. And then got transferred over to the chief judge, who is an Obama appointee in East St. Louis. And with that, the state is now judge shopping, because the judge that SAF drew and the judge that we drew had a pretty good record. Now they've got an Obama judge, so they're trying to move all the cases over to this Obama judge, because the judge also recused himself from our case and the NSSF case. I'm hearing that he's a judge on senior status, doesn't typically do civil stuff, and is, has wants a lighter load instead of a major trial like this.
So the state is trying to consolidate a lot of these lawsuits into one. From my understanding, I know that there's also I believe a suit against the city of Naperville.
Yes,
On
and so that creates a whole new level. This is where the bingo card comes in.
right.
So you got the state stuff, you got the federal stuff in Southern Illinois. Now what you have is you have the Cook County lawsuit, which has been going on for over 18 months.
Hmm.
The National Association for Gun Rights, after the New York decision came out, sat there and filed suit against Highland Park. And then the village of Naperville sat there and passed an ordinance banning the sale of centerfire magazine-fed semi-automatic rifles. Okay, so right before Christmas, Highland Park moved to consolidate with the Cook County suit. The Cook County suit was set to go to trial this week. The village of Naperville then, just a few days ago, made the same move to try to consolidate with Cook County. At the same time, the National Association for Gun Rights is filing for an amended complaint to prohibit the state from enforcement on law weapons, the gun shop in Naperville. So these are all the moving pieces. So now you're going to have some form of a lawsuit in the Northeast District in the federal court. You've got these 3 lawsuits down in the southern part of the court. And I will tell you that within the group I'm working on, we saw this bill being so big. I said there are 5 basic components to this, and that's too much to jam into one lawsuit. I think you see that even with NRA and SAF, that those guys have sat there and gone after guns and mags first as an opening salvo.
Hmm.
There's a lot more to tackle. Now, the way the law is written, you've got the switch stuff in one section, the red flag law in another section, and then the majority of everything else is covered in 2 other sections: the gun section 24 1.9 and 24 1.10 for the mags. So there's you knock out either one of those 2 sections, they knock out a lot of the stuff. So I think there's um, a propensity to go after the big stuff, and then we'll take on the nuances of it a little later.
Yeah, another part that I learned about that I thought was pretty crazy was even parts
Yes.
are included in this ban. So things like springs and firing pins and tiny little pieces of metal are unable to purchase in Illinois. So even if you do have existing firearms that need some replacement parts, they're not going to be able to purchase those here in the
So
state.
they sit there and they say any part or attachment that can be made to convert a firearm to one of the so threaded barrel on a Glock, prohibited gun. Okay, does that now mean that every part for a Glock is prohibited? Because any one of those parts could make this gun. Um, that's the plain reading I would, and so just, you know, take an AR-15 for instance. Um, if this thing goes down and I need a new bolt carrier, can't get it because
Right.
that's directly for a prohibited gun. If I need a detent spring, I can't get it. Um, so looking at all that, yeah, they've done that, and I think they did us a favor by doing that. I don't think they understand what they did, and I can't talk about it tonight. But we have a legal strategy built around that that is designed. So the groups I'm working with, we're not. The gun ban is right here, and everybody sees the gun ban. We're not. It's important, but we're looking in a three-dimensional chess game. We are looking down the road
Sure.
as to what we want to achieve. It isn't just about the gun ban that everybody is freaking out about right now. And it's about building a legal foundation that gives us the ability to springboard off into other avenues. And the president of my gun club said, I didn't get elected to lead the gun rights movement. I got elected to build out a gun club and make sure that our kids and grandkids have a place to go enjoy what we've done. But he has been thrust into this. Aurora Sportsman's Club thought that somebody needed to take the lead to make sure that the shooter's voice was actually heard. And I will tell you that I know for a fact, since I'm doing a lot of it, that you've got gun guys who are looking at this litigation and crafting arguments. That's why if you go to our complaint, there's references to Ida B. Wells in there.
Sure.
There are references to other civil rights leaders well within there to do all that. And so we're laying a foundation here that's going to make it difficult for the state. And again, this is a springboard.
Hmm.
If we prevail, which I believe we will, and we recover our attorney's fees, then that gives us the launch pad and the financial resources to take the state on in further endeavors. And I will tell you, that is my intention that when we get done with the statutes, it's going to look like Freddy Krueger went through
Yeah, it looks like I believe the state of Washington now is also looking into enacting some type of legislation as well.
Colorado is on it,
Colorado,
and this language has mysteriously very similar to what's been proposed in Colorado. So we
right?
know the anti-gun groups are talking,
Sure,
and they're playing games with this. Um,
it's a
you know,
coordinated effort.
and I think the 15 rounds on handguns was a way to try to sidestep the courts. I think they even realized they have problems with 10 rounds across the board. And we'll be filing on that. And when we do, I think that that is going to be a very different type of filing. I think some people are going to be shocked what they file when we read it. So there's that. Yeah, there is a coordinated effort on their part, but I think our groups are going to work together to make sure that we get the best legal outcome that we can wrangle, and we build the best legal record there is, because there have been some very interesting discussions taking place at the Court of Appeals on other gun cases that are up there. And we are very heartened by what we hear coming out at the oral arguments from the judges.
Yeah, I mean it, especially after the New York, what is it, the Braun case that
Well, okay, so there's that's one of my rubs. The case is New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin.
mhm,
Everybody is lazy in shortening it to Bruin. I don't want to give that piece of garbage AG out there any credit. The New
right?
York State Rifle and Pistol Association
Good
won
point.
this case fair. That's why I always refer to it as New York, because that was the case.
we don't want to give credit to the guy who lost the case.
Hmm.
That makes more sense. But yeah,
That's just a pet peeve of mine.
yeah, but I mean, after that case, it just seemed like you would think that some of these states would be a little bit more hesitant to put this legislation out
No,
there.
they're pole vaulting right past stupid and into potato. Look at they are just beside themselves between the Dobbs decision and this one. In Illinois, Dobbs, oh, we're going to protect the right.
Hmm.
Over here on um on the New York decision, they're going to go the opposite way and flip a finger to the court. So no, uh, my goal now is, I know that it appears from the size and heft of our governor, he enjoys food. So I want to force feed him the Heller and New York decisions, and I'll provide all the barbecue sauce he wants to eat all that stuff. But that's the way I see it. We're going to force feed them whether they like it or not. I don't care if they choke on it, but we are going to force them. The goal with all this is to, in the New York decision, it said the Second Amendment is not a straitjacket. Well, we're going to put handcuffs on these sons of bitches that they're going to live by and abide by our constitutional rights.
Yeah, also funny thing here is that um, there's a new gun range just approved across the border in Wisconsin, um, outside of Kenosha, that is going to have you can have the ability to fire military style weapons. It says in the news, and oddly enough, the property where the range is located is owned by the Pritzker family. So
It's owned by the museum people,
correct.
and so they have a military museum here, in Chicago. They
Hmm.
actually have an FFL, so they must
Yes.
have some firearms on display or something. I think that's the tranny relative of the governor that actually owns that or is involved in that. I don't.
That is involved with that, and they certainly tend to be more. They're more in favor of guns and the Second Amendment than other members of the family for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, that you have this dichotomy within the family. Whatever. It would be too apropos if we could claim he was just another slimy deal making politician, like Blago or whatever, who was trying to make it illegal over here so he could benefit over here. I'm not going to subscribe that motive
Right.
to it, but I would think that maybe that the land might have been cheaper, the taxes might have been better, and the gun laws might have been better just across the border for them to get that project done, which just seems too funny, given who's the family that's behind it. But it is what it. I mean, people can point at that stuff. It's fun to point a finger at, but it's not. Um, it's at the end of the day, it's not going to move the needle for us much. You're
Correct.
just
Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant to the case, but it is just an interesting, just an interesting piece of information to know.
look. If they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
Exactly, exactly. I guess one kind of last thing is the ATF um, came out with its final a determination on braces, stabilizing braces, pistol braces, and eh, again, this just seems to be to me, it's an organization without any transparency or authority or recourse to the voters or to the people that are kind of making laws that really should be made through through the legislation at least.
Well, couple of things here. One, you've got a couple of congressmen that have introduced new bills about ATF. One wants to set up a complete appeals process for licensees, and then another one wants to hamstring their ability to do certain things. Great. They're, I think that next time we have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican House, they need to go through ATF with a meat cleaver and just clean that place up. And it needs to get a new set of directives. And, we all joke ATFE should be a convenience store, not a governmental agency.
Right.
But they should be there to help people comply, not try to sit there and find new ways to screw with gun shops and gun owners and all that stuff.
Correct. And
However,
they shouldn't be interpreting they shouldn't have the power to interpret
well,
those laws.
that goes back to some cases called Chevron and a couple other things. But the good news is that the Fifth Circuit down in Texas in an en banc ruling uh, just gutted them on the bump stock stuff. And understand, these are
Right.
not 2A cases. These are administrative law cases and an
Correct.
interpretation as to whether or not they have the legal authority to do what they're doing. And the Fifth Circuit's en banc, 15-3, said, no, you do not have the authority to write what you're writing. The statute does not give it to you. Congress has not delegated it to you. You are way out over your skis. There's a split in the circuits, and Garland has to appeal that decision. He has to, which means that you have the 80% case, which is down in the Fifth Circuit right now, which there are injunctions issued in that case against the ATF enforcement. And now you've got a dormant Brace case pending down there with Second Amendment Foundation. Again, these are all interpretations of administrative law. And I think that Fifth Circuit ruling, that en banc ruling, is going to be devastating to them because everything's going to run down there. If I'm doing anything, I'm running for a national injunction down at the Fifth Circuit because those guys, they already laid down the law. And they're going to have to appeal all these things up the food chain. And I think that either the bump stock ban or one of the other ones, if they really don't want to tackle bump stocks, is going to have to be ruled on by the Supreme Court. And they are going to have to lay down the law on ATF and how much authority they actually have to do things. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think it's going to be a huge win for us through the administrative code. And then it's gonna stop them cold in their tracks on a lot of stuff.
Well, I hope so. It just it seems like there's a lot of different cases going around in different states, different circuits. It's just kind of interesting to see how uh, recently, anyway, a lot of these restrictions and bans have either been either struck down or referred back to the some of the lower courts after the New York case.
Well,
Uh,
wherever you have bad gun laws, so the state of California is trying to push everything back to the district court to get a restart. They're hoping to drag the clock out so that Clarence Thomas gets hit by a bus.
right.
I We knew for a long time under Obama they were hoping that Thomas would kick the bucket, something would happen. Nobody expected that when Anthony Scalia dropped dead, that Mitch McConnell would find the cojones to sit there and hold that open, waiting for the next election. Donald Trump rolls in. We get that seat that Merrick Garland was nominated for, replaced with a what appears to be a decent conservative, and then lo and behold, two more seats open up.
Yeah,
And
Kavanaugh and Barrett.
while Kennedy retired under a Republican president, and I think they picked you know, um, he was comfortable with the pick in one way or another. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg bought into all her hype of Notorious RBG and didn't go when Obama had the chance to appoint somebody.
Right.
And they lost that seat, and they lost that seat in a big way. And now we have a potentially 6-3 court. Certainly, the thinking was that Roberts was the squish for the longest time, and that's why we weren't getting gun cases. There have been rumors that Justice Alito would not let a gun case go forward that he didn't think they had 5 votes on. So, you know, both Kavanaugh and Barrett have written at the appellate level with some interesting, and they were closer to what came out in New York than what uh, than what the other courts had been doing. There were dissents in a couple of cases.
Right.
So I think that we're in a pretty good posture. And right now, it's find a way to the rocket docket. And if you look at, I mean, just look at New York. New York played this game on carry a couple of weeks ago. The court did not take up the emergency appeal, but Thomas and Alito wrote and especially said, don't be discouraged by this because we're not looking at the merits. But oh, Second Circuit Court of Appeals, you better speed things up and you better start giving answers to things. Now, they've accelerated things to where they're doing things by the 20th of March. We're going to have 5 hearings. I don't call, 5 months or whatever any sort of speeding up of things. I think that our people would like to see things handled in weeks, not
Right.
months. But we don't control the federal judiciary. I just there's an argument to be had there. But yeah, we're keeping our eyes on all that because it all matters. And look, another big date in the calendar is going to be February 20th. That is when all the briefing in the California cases are due to be done. And I don't think we're going to be waiting around months for Judge Benitez to issue his opinion.
I speaking of that California case, I had been following it a little bit, and the state of California was asked to provide some precedent uh, for gun bans, and a lot of the cases that they presented were just crazy. The laws that banned African Americans and Native
Mhm.
Americans from owning firearms. Like these are the laws that you're using to try to defend your side.
So,
Are you
so
are you
think about
sure?
that.
Are you sure you want to say that?
The United States government in these felon cases has gone back to times when Quakers, Catholics, and other religious orders were not allowed to have firearms because they wouldn't swear a loyalty oath.
Hmm.
So you want to infringe upon religious freedoms to take away their guns. Um, and then if you speed up to the late 1860s, most of the prohibitions on people were the black codes, the Jim Crow laws.
Right.
And
Hmm.
that's why I sit there and I call this the Jim Crow 2.0. This is designed at keeping people of color. They don't like the rural white guy who voted for Trump, and they don't like conservative minorities, whether they be Latino, Asian, or black or whatever, who say, we don't need you. We don't need your handout. We don't need your help. We can do it ourselves. Go back to the Rodney King riots and those pictures of those Koreans on top of stores with rifles and stuff
Yep.
back in the day. It's been going on for a while. And so I think they're and that's why I often say that, every time I look at, Bob Morgan, Don Harmon, and the like, if you squint real hard, you can see the governor of, Alabama or whatever standing on the steps of that school saying, no, you can't come in. Um, I see no difference. I see no difference between this group of thugs and Bull Connor. That Bull Connor used a fire hose and dogs, and these guys just think they're somehow better than an average mobster because they're using a pen.
And also when it comes to if they actually started enforcing some of these laws, just like every other law that's been passed, whether it's drug laws or gang laws, the communities that end up suffering the most and having the most people incarcerated, again, are going to be not you and I. They're going to be underserved communities, going to be people of color. These laws again and again, even though that the politicians that propose them think that they might be doing it in good faith, the ones that really will have kind of serve the brunt of it are going to be the ones that are supposed to be their constituents, the ones they're supposed to be representing. So it's just it just doesn't make any sense, even from a historical aspect. We've seen what this stuff has done in the past, and uh, kind of can predict what's going to happen. But I appreciate you coming on the show. I'll throw your Freedom's Steel on YouTube. I try to watch it every day just to kind of get an update as to what's going on with this particular case and other gun law cases. So
So you're enjoying it? You getting
I'm
something out of
enjoying
it?
it. It's my way of kind of getting a quick update as to what's going on out there that I can listen to while I'm working, and then I can go ahead and read some more in-depth articles. But it's a really good
Well,
overview.
we try to do something a little different. I usually try to throw up quotes and things that I'm citing and the reason why, and give that little deeper dive into it. I had a rule when I was lobbying. I wouldn't say anything I couldn't back up without a document within 5 minutes. And with the Google and the internet these days, you can find most of. And when they put things in briefs, words mean things. I'm going to have a couple
Yeah.
coming up here about the Floyd card case that's pending in Sangamon County. The briefing is concluded in that. We're going to take on that. You would not believe what the Attorney General wrote in his briefs. And it's going to be fun. And there's some other things in there about the way they treated a gun rights leader and mocking him just because he's standing up for his rights, amongst other things. So, I've got a plethora of material to try to get through. This is only piled on, trying to keep people informed. I'm having fun doing it. I'm learning a lot. I am not that computer savvy. The fact that I can do this with you now is been a slow road for me to do things. And then I'm getting people critiquing my background here in my office and all kinds of stuff about you shouldn't have that. And it's like, and I have now that I'm retired and I don't necessarily speak for the NRA or any group individually. What you see is what you get. Yes, there's a bottle of Jack Daniels over my shoulder. Yes, I do. We play by big boys rules. Sometimes I will have a whiskey when I'm analyzing something, and just like, guys, it's painful. You're gonna need this just to get through it, and some of that stuff. We're not afraid to show things and do some other stuff, but and I tell people, if you find me offensive, then quit finding me.
Right. Well, I certainly appreciate what you're doing. Keep it up, and
Well, I
I'll
appreciate
be
the
following
opportunity to
it.
come on your podcast.
And yeah, I'd love to have you on again after maybe in a couple months or a few weeks and get an update as to where all these cases stand.
Yeah, we'll probably have a better handle on this first round of cases here. The next 10 to 14 days would be my guess on this. I would encourage everybody to watch the Fourth Circuit for the Bianchi v. Frosch semi-auto case. Either, we win, it gets remanded, whatever. It's good orals for us. The Atkinson case out of the Seventh Circuit. I mean, there is stuff going on all over the place. And I think the anti-gunners are going to be that little Dutch boy with their finger in the dike, and it's all going to come crashing around them like the Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, I think you're right. As more of these cases start being ruled on, then there's more and more precedent for upcoming cases. So keep up the good work, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you always, and like I always say, frag out.
All right.
You know where that came from?
No.
All right,
What's that?
so former combat arms guy. Whenever we threw a hand grenade or a frag
Hmm.
grenade, it was frag out to let all the other guys know. So, being former military, I treat every one of my videos as a knowledge hand grenade for our side to show them where things are. So that's why
It's a heads up.
that's what it is.
Great. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk again soon.
Take care.
All right, thanks. And thank all of you for joining me. If you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button to stay updated on the latest episodes. If you're tuning in through Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast app, click follow to stay in the loop. You can also follow me on Twitter at Second City Liberty. That's the number 2, ND, City Liberty. Check out my website, www.secondcityliberty.com. And if you have an idea for the show or a guest that you would like to see appear on the podcast, shoot me an email, jim@secondcityliberty.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay strapped, and stay based.